Before we go ahead and get started today, I just wanted to give everybody a very personal thank you for subscribing to my channel. We have now passed 500 subscribers, so thank you so much for joining me in this community that we are building together, talking about fantasy, talking about favorite books and different characters and writing and lots of other things that relate to fantasy. So thank you so much for subscribing and wanting to be a member of the community that we're building and sharing your love of fantasy with me as I share mine with you. So thank you so much. It really means a lot to me to have made it to this milestone, and I hope that our channel continues to grow together and that we continue to find new people who will also enjoy fantasy with us and share their opinions. So let's go ahead and get started in today's class, but thank you again, and I hope that you will continue to share that love with me and that you will continue to like the content that I make for you. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today's class is going to be on the next set of chapters for the Darksword Trilogy, the first one, Forging the Darksword. This is going to be chapters 11 through 2. So as you guys probably know, if you are reading it and following along, we've got the book 1 section of chapters, and then it starts book 2 inside the first book, and then it goes 1, 2. So we are passing through the next sectioning of the book, which is now starting us off with chapters 1, 2, 3 again. So chapters 11 through 2 is accurate. It's not a typo, if that's what you're worried about. I think it's interesting because other Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman books also do this. Like, for example, when we covered the Dragonlance series, they have that sectioning in there, and then they restart their chapters from chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 when you get to the next section break. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know of any other authors that do the sectioning, but then also like make it start over on the chapter count. But yes, it just is kind of confusing when I'm labeling which chapters we're doing. So hopefully you did not get lost and you realized we just went to the next section. Let's go ahead and get started with our recap as always. These are actually some pretty interesting chapter sets in the fact that we've got some kind of major events happening here. It doesn't seem like it's super actiony except for, a couple of those main events that happen with Joram, but we have a lot of prep work for these important things that are going to transpire moving forward. So obviously we've got the whole Joram arc at the very beginning, and we're going to have the Saryon that we're setting up here. So let's go ahead and go over that recap and we can discuss that a little bit more. So first we start off this set of chapters with that new overseer coming in, and he is very distrustful of his workers, and he's especially not a fan of Joram. So he ends up trying to test Joram by having the Father Tolban grant them all life in order for them to rise off the earth and to do the work that way. Of course, Joram can't float, so that kind of causes some red flags there. And based on this interaction that's happening, Father Tolban realizes that he's dead and that he cannot give him life at all. So this is now finally, the big secret is revealed that Joram is actually dead. And when the overseer tries to take steps to detain him and get law enforcement involved, Anja ends up turning into this cat-like creature and attacks him, only to be killed by the overseer. So in turn, Joram picks up a rock and throws it at him and kills him. So 2 people dead, and Joram is the one that's really going to be in trouble for it, especially for the fact that he's dead. So the Magi that work in that field end up covering for him and allowing him to escape into the Outlands. So he gets out there and he ends up falling into a depressive state, ends up just collapsing, being unable to focus or move or recognize the world around him until he gets attacked by some centaurs who nearly kill him. And then we get the sense that Joram has been saved by some mysterious people. and he wakes up on a boat with a woman who says that he is now with the Coven of the Wheel. So he did get saved, he is alive, he's just injured, and now he is with members of the Coven of the Wheel. And then we jump over to Saryon, who is hearing the story of Joram from Father Tolban, courtesy of the Bishop Vanya, and he is sending Saryon to the field that Joram worked at in order to set up a precedence for him to escape into the Outlands. So, unfortunately, Saryon is unable to say no to this assignment and is sent out. And he specifically gets there. Well, this is kind of after we see the whole part of him being sent out, we kind of get a section where we get an explanation of the Outlands. So we do have that little break in between where we get that section of Outlands. We get to see who lives there. We get to hear about the technologists. And then we actually jump to seeing Saryon in the area, the field that he's working at for a short time to build up his reputation. And we see that he's experiencing life on the field magi. He's trying to figure out more about Joram. He's asking questions. He's doing his research and setting his layout. And then the bishop is saying, okay, time to go. And we kind of jump over to a man named Blatchlock, I think is how you would say it. And he ends up talking to a man named Simkin. And Simkin is telling him about Saryon and his escape, or how he's supposed to be going into the Outlands. And Blatchlock is asking him, or not asking him, he's basically telling him, you will go ahead and secure this catalyst and you will bring him to us. Which, if we're looking back on like what Bishop was wanting, that is what he wants, is for him to get to the wheel. And his guess was right, that they're going to take him no matter what, even if they do know that he's being sent out there as a mission or not to be fully escaping on his own. So it's pretty, like I said, an important set of chapters, not because other than the fact, like, you know, Joram is escaping and his mom dies and so that. It's not super actiony, it's not super, like, rich in that sense, but we have a lot of important things that are being set up for the rest of our story. At least, you know, book one. We don't know exactly how far things are going to progress through this book, so we don't know how 2 and 3 is going to go yet. But at least these things that we're setting up right here in these chapters, and since we've been at the beginning, is all to get us started with Joram being out there and obviously Saryon being out there. It's based on how things are going and the way that we've had that prophecy at the beginning. It seems like we're now getting into the places that people need to be in order for that to start making its motion forward. But we're going to find out. We're going to see exactly what happens. We're going to see exactly how things go and what will progress from here. The book is called Forging the Dark Sword, so it is likely that there is going to be some kind of forging of some kind of sword that will do something. And it seems like we're on a steady progression to at least get to that kind of idea or that kind of event, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's jump into our first topic, and that topic is going to be world building. So, of course, fantasy stories never stop world building. Not that any other stories really ever stop world building, but fantasy stories are the richest and most consistent throughout the story of building the world because it's not like our own. Even if it is an urban fantasy that takes place in our own, universe of Earth, there's always these new things and these new interactions with magic and with, mythological creatures or whatever it may be that makes it different and makes us need to understand what the rules and the parameters of the world is. With a high fantasy like this, we are continuing to learn new things about this story or this world throughout the story because we have no prior knowledge of what this world is like. So we must continue to learn about it as we continue to experience new things with our characters. So it's important to constantly still be focusing on what the world building is and where we're at and how that's going to affect our story and how we enjoy the story. Because, I'm sure a lot of you guys, as well as me, really appreciate the world that is being built, and that's one of the main aspects of why we like fantasy, is for these unique worlds that we get to experience and get to see created in the words that are on the page. So the first thing, obviously, that really stands out as far as world building is that chapter with the Outlands, where we get to learn a lot about what is possible in this world based on who is out there in the Outlands. And we see that there are a lot of magical creatures out in those Outlands. We haven't really talked much about magical creatures or things other than human and other than magic. So now we kind of have a list and kind of a detailed description a little bit of what's out there and why they're out there, or, some kind of basic information that we've got. We've got that there's trolls out there, giants, dragons even, unicorns, fairies, centaurs, which we actually have firsthand experience with now as they almost killed Joram. And those centaurs, we know at least for sure that they are mutated humans that ended up being formed into centaurs, and they have this unparalleled rage for the human race because of it, even if they can't remember that is why they hate them. So we have even that little bit of backstory on how the centaurs got there and why they are so dangerous and why they are attacking Joram. So we don't know how they, were stopped from killing him. We don't know how Joram was saved at this point, but we do understand that he was attacked and the why. So we know that that's something that we'll have to watch out for in the future, and for these other creatures as well. Obviously, dragons are usually depicted as dangerous, same with trolls and giants. Fairies can be, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And then the unicorns usually are more pure animals, but that doesn't mean that there won't be bad things that are happening around them or because of them. So these are all things that we can look forward to hopefully knowing more about and seeing more in the future of our story. And it definitely gives it a little bit more depth to this story, because we understand now it's not just humans living in this world. We have these other mythical creatures, and some of them were created through magic and mutating the human race. So we understand a little bit more about the history, that magic can be just as corruptive and just as used as a tool as technology is, because it's similar to like what could be possibly in a regular story where you're experimenting on humans and seeing if you can make them have certain traits or something like that. And it looks like the same thing that they've been doing with magic, is trying to mutate people to have better something, and it goes awry, and then we've got centaurs that then hate humans and they have to try and corral them out of regular society. Okay. Next I wanted to talk about with the world building was the sorcerers of the ninth mystery are still around, and they have made this coven. So this is important because, and it's a way of world building, because we make it sound at the beginning that these people don't exist, that they've been eradicated from the world. And of course that means that it's unlikely that, they got every single one of them, or that nobody ended up coming forward in that time that ended up wanting to do the technology or study the ninth mystery. So at first we have a thinking like, okay, all these people were killed and eradicated, and this is now a very pure set of people, that this is only corruption is bringing forth the people who are interested in the ninth mystery. But now we see that they are actually still around and alive and not as dead as everybody is made to think. Though, of course, the bishop knew about this and specifically says that they don't tell people because they don't want anybody to know that these people exist. So it's really all a cover for the people who they don't want to know about it. They want to seem like they're a perfect world and that there is nothing to be afraid of and there is nothing out there. And they've eradicated this evil existence. But really, that existence is still alive and strong and in hiding. And that also leaves the potential that it could overrun the world as it is now. So it's having right now a very balanced balance between, being enough balance that they can cover up the fact of the existence. But what happens if their existence becomes a bit too loud? So definitely changes the dynamic of the world and the dynamic of the possibilities that are in this world now that we know of the existence of this coven and of the sorcerers that are practicing technology. Next, let's go ahead and talk about Joram's escape. So this is important to talk about because this is a very pivotal moment in this story. Like, this is changing everything and has really changed the dynamic of the story. It changed the dynamic of the future. It's gonna really make a difference on where his life is going at this moment and in the future. I mean, obviously now he can never return to the life that he had before. He can never pass himself off as being alive again because people know about him. The bishop knows about him. And so he will be forever now an outcast, and everybody knows now that he is dead. So all the chances that he might have had if he could continue to pass himself off as alive, and the life that he could have had then is now going to be different. Of course, he's never had an easy life. Of course, he's never been loved by anybody. But at the same time, now the only person he really had is dead, and it was killed by somebody who is a magic user, and he now knows 100% for sure that he is dead and will never be able to be alive according to society. So it's a very, very important moment going on in this set of chapters. So I do feel like it's actually very interesting, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, as to why the workers actually help him escape. I understand why Mosiah wanted to help him escape, because he's Joram's friend, and he's always liked Joram, and in some ways I think he had an inkling that he might be dead. But I don't totally understand why the dad helps and why the others cover for him and help him to escape, just because they never really liked Joram. Not saying that they want to be helpful to those that are treating them poorly, because obviously we've mentioned before that they kind of want to do an uprising, and that's why the new overseer was really strict on them, because he knew that they were kind of unhappy and could be uncivil. But Joram has never been somebody that they liked. I mean, he's always been separate. He's always been considered weird. He's always been considered an outlier. But in this moment, they all kind of converge together and help him, which I find is super interesting. They could have used him as leverage in order to be oh, we'll give him up to you if you are going to, give us better working environment, if you give us, more life during the day, if you, kind of used him as leverage. But instead of doing that, they just let him go and are escape. And this is our way of helping you, as well as doing a little bit of rebellion. So I just think it's super interesting choice that they made when they could have made other choices, especially since they had no real loyalty to Joram. I mean, even Mosiah ends up, seems like at least, joining the Outlands with Joram. And so saving him ended up costing Mosiah's dad to lose his son. And he didn't really seem too upset about that. I don't know. Maybe he was more upset, or maybe you got a different feeling, but it seemed like he wasn't really that upset that his son was gone. Maybe he already kind of knew that his son might leave, especially since he has talked to the Outlanders before. But it's tough to say. Mosiah didn't seem like somebody who would be cut out for the Outlander life. I don't know what the term would be, or the addition to the Outland to make it where you're an Outlander. So I think, personally, I think that they pitied Joram. I think that they understood how his mom treated him, and understood that he was having to struggle through this life to try and not be caught and to be treated so poorly, like even more poorly than they were in a lot of ways. So I think they let them go because they disliked the overseer and they disliked the people who are over them more than they wanted to, and they wanted to kind of do it to spite them. Than to, possibly keep him or use him as leverage. They instead kind of pitied him and felt like that was a way to get back at those that were treating them poorly. But it's tough to say. Like I said, it's not really very clear, for me at least, why they actually helped him. So I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and your opinions on that, because I do think it is an interesting moment where you see them all band together to help him out and help him get away. Another thing about this moment is that now Joram has become a murderer. And it's not like he murdered somebody just to murder somebody. It's not that kind of thing. But he killed because they killed his mom. So he has the trauma of the fact that the only person he really had, even if she wasn't really very good to him, is gone. His one tie to a family or to anybody who would stick by him has been taken from him. But so there's the fact of like, how will his mom's death affect him? But then also, how will it affect him that now he has murdered somebody? He literally picked up a rock, threw it at the guy, and killed him in an instant. So we've got people who don't want him to be alive because he's considered dead. We've got the horrible way they've treated him and the horrible life that he has endured. The superiority complex that he kind of now has because his mom twisted him to think like, oh, he's better than everybody else. But then now he's also killed somebody. He's seen his mom killed. It's pretty intense for anybody. And I mean, sure, he's not super young, but he's also just, a young man. It's not like he's been, seeing the world a long time or anything. So it's going to be interesting to see how his mom's death will affect him, how him killing somebody will affect him, and the way he does things, the way he thinks about things, whether he feels like killing people is now going to be just okay because he has every right to do so, or whatever else. He's never been really a violent person before, but in this one moment, that could be brought out in him, and we're going to just have to find out on how that affected him. It did also trigger his depression, so that is one thing, is that instantly it triggered the depression that he suffers from, and almost made him die from just starving to death laying down on the ground. The centaurs in many ways saved him, even if they almost killed him as well, but they did save him by waking him up, as well as making it so he is saved by somebody, and having that saving is going to then has jolted him out of that depression. So again, those are all just points that are important and things that we have to keep in mind, and things that will maybe shape the future of this story, especially with such a pivotal moment. So I just love to hear your thoughts on the overseer and how he was treating them and how he discovered things, what your thoughts are on Joram's movement forward from this. I just love to hear your thoughts and opinions about this very important moment. Next, we are going to talk about Bishop Vanya's choice of sending Saryon after Joram. So that's the other main thing that we're setting up here, is that Saryon is going after Joram, and it's his job to retrieve him so they can, assumingly, kill him and dispose of him. And I think this is an interesting thing to talk about because, one, it's an important plot point, but two, because of the choice that Bishop Vanya is making about who he is sending. So my question in this whole concept here, is Saryon really the best choice of who to send? Maybe he's the only choice. Maybe that's really the only choice he really has of doing this. But Saryon has had a history of being interested in the ninth mystery. He even broke into those books and was looking at it. And I understand, like, part of that might actually be helpful in the fact that he's going to this coven that's about the ninth mystery. But doesn't it seem kind of like a risky choice to pick somebody who is actually tempted by the nine mysteries? I guess you could say, back and forth, maybe that'll be a help factor. Maybe Bishop Vanya doesn't want to corrupt another catalyst who he already, wants, he already's got one that's corrupted. He can just send them out in case. That way he won't be doing another one that's corrupted. Maybe it's because he has this, hold over him about him being in that library and that he could have had him killed instead or turned instead. So it's back and forth on like why he made this choice, but I kind of wonder if it's a good choice or not, because he could easily just not bring Joram back. He could just decide, hey, I like this better. This gives me math skills, my math test, and I want to be interested in this, and I'm seeing how this is working. And he's obviously somebody who, has been led astray by himself because of his love for math away and into the ninth mystery. So I feel like this is a mixed bag on whether this was a good choice to send Saryon or not. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. He is seriously afraid, Vanya, of the dead walking the earth, and he is seriously afraid of this prophecy that could come to life, and that's why obviously he's so intent on getting Joram. But if he's that intent on getting him, is Saryon the best choice? Because if Saryon doesn't bring him back, then he's got even more of a problem of that he's still gonna be walking around and he has nobody else to send. So it's kind of an interesting predicament here, and we're gonna see if Saryon is strong enough to resist the allure of the ninth mysteries. Maybe he'll find that he no longer has any interest. But I just feel like, based on his history, that this is a risky send. And I'm interested to know how this will if it will be, that risk will be fulfilled or not. And what will happen with Bishop Vanya when, if Saryon does defect or does decide he's not bringing Joram in, how the bishop will, what he'll do then, like what will be his next step, what will his second option be. And this task and its completion will set the precedence on if that prophecy is coming true or not, because obviously we don't know exactly what Joram's status was in the nobility, but we do know that he is a dead noble, and that is, very much tied to that prophecy. And so if he's not brought back, and if he is walking around, is he going to be the one that fulfills this prophecy? Obviously, it's very highly hinted at, that the fact that we're following him from a child, that he is the one that the prophecy did say was going to happen and was going to make the ruin of this world. So this is a very important task for the scheme of things, because its completion and Joram being stopped is going to possibly save the world or maybe bring about its ruin. It'll be very interesting to see what happens from here and where this is going to go for us based on the choice that Bishop Vanya has made in who he is sending out into the Outlands. So again, this is something I'd love to know your opinion about, and I just wanted to kind of touch on it and discuss it a bit with you because it is such an important choice, an important moment in this story. Next, let's move on to the nitty gritty. So I only have 2 things for the nitty gritty this time. It's a little bit harder to delve in on like the nitpicky things. It seemed like it was much more big concepts for this particular set of chapters, but there are 2 things I'd like to talk about and kind of keep in mind as we go forward. The first thing is that it's very interesting that we have come up with this new knowledge that the beauty of the court right now is an illusion. The Empress is actually wasting away and dying. She has been, I'm assuming, I don't remember if it actually said specifically in the text or not, so correct me if it actually did say it, but I believe that it's from the death of her child. Like, she was so devastated that her child was considered dead and taken from her. I mean, obviously she attacked the bishop and, was just completely devastated. And so obviously she has not been able to recover from that. Or maybe it could be some kind of other illness or something like that. Isn't really known specifically, but it says that she's wasting away. So it doesn't really sound necessarily like a physical sickness or something like that, that she literally is just losing her will to live. So that was the impression that I got. But either way, the perfection of court and how amazing things are for the nobility is really an illusion at this point, because everyone is having to walk around on eggshells for the fact that their empress is dying and is doing very unwell. And the emperor is ignoring it, and everyone's just trying to act like all the babies that were taken from them and born dead is just non-existent, and that things are continuing to be the same as it was before all of these events happened. So the most important area of their society is now darkened, and they're just trying to pretend that they are still in happiness and full spirits and a good place. And next has to do with Simpkin, who we saw in our last chapter. He has a very interesting personality, and obviously we've set him up to be somebody who's going to be continually in this book. Obviously he has to go ahead and get Saryon and bring him back, so we're going to see him some more. And he's got a very interesting personality. He's a mix of this kind of serious yet dramatic and wild mixed with smart. And these kind of combination of traits are traits that I really enjoy. I think that they make a really great character. And even just reading this chapter again of Simpkin and just this little look into him, I just was smiling so big, because these are the kind of characters that I really, really enjoy. And hopefully you enjoy Simpkin as well. But it's just such a good combo of how he's funny and dramatic and a wild card, and yet at the same time he's smart and cunning and has that other side to him where it's don't underestimate him. He acts that dramaticness, but really we know based on just the feel of him that really he's doing it to hide how smart and how strategic he is. And obviously Blacklock, I always feel like I'm saying his name wrong. Blacklock is keeping him around specifically for the fact that he is smart and that he does get the job done. Obviously he wouldn't be sending him on this important mission if he didn't think for at least 99% sure that he's going to get it done, because it is such an important task. So really excited to see more of Simpkin, and I'm really excited to hear your guys' thoughts on him as we continue moving forward. Okay, so that is everything for today, at least for this set of chapters. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you're always welcome to let me know. Before we go ahead and wrap up, let's go ahead and go over the trivia question. So I know that this trivia question went on for a couple of weeks. Sorry that I wasn't able to get out a new question, but we are going to go ahead and have it answered now. So the question was, which culture's folklore did the kappa come from? And we had one correct answer from Christian. These turtles don't eat pizza. And that answer is Japanese. So it's from Japanese culture that the kappa mythological creature comes from. So nice job to Christian. And thank you for always having the most fun names that you come up with and you enter into the name block. So I always enjoy seeing what you've got for that week. If you would like to join in on the trivia question and you would like to see what it's all about, go over to the blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net. It's going to be on the right-hand side of the screen for desktop. You'll scroll down just a little bit. It'll be right there. If you're on mobile, you'll have to scroll almost all the way down to the bottom in order to find it, but it will be down there for you to fill in the answer to the question and find out if you are right. All right, so while you're over at the blog, go ahead and check out the other content that I have on there. I've got lots of blog posts over there. Some are personal, some are my thoughts on different fantasy or reading things. I've got book recommendations, book reviews, I've got writing stuff over there, I've got tons of things, so hopefully you will check it out and hopefully enjoy it. Let me know if there's any content that you want for the channel or for the blog. I'd be happy to hear what you guys would like and to make the content accordingly if I can. If you'd like to get a hold of me, and down below is not the best place, go ahead and check out my social media. There is a Twitter for Fantasy Fiction Fanatics, which is at FantasyFiction1. You can direct message me over there, see updates, all of that. Same thing about Facebook, which is /FantasyFiction1. You can get updates from me as well there, as well as the direct messaging option. Though the best place to be, in my opinion, is the Discord. The link will be down below if you'd like to join it. But there you can not only direct message me and get a hold of me, but you can also have conversations with your fellow fantasy fanatics and hear what they're talking about, hear what they have to say, discuss your favorite books and movies or anything else, fantasy or non-fantasy related. We've got a whole bunch of stuff over there for you to talk about and to enjoy with each other. And we've got several people over there already talking about it. Lately, we've been talking a little bit about the newest Dragonlance book that came out. So if you are hoping for somebody to discuss that book with, because you're checking it out yourself, we're really having quite a few things over there and talking about how good it is going and how people are liking it. So hopefully you'll join us in that. Okay, I think that is it for me today, and I hope you enjoyed this class. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!